Welcome to The Explainer. Right now, all across the globe, there's a hidden war being fought. It's not a war you see on the news every night, but it's just as critical. It's a battle being waged on two very different fronts to protect our planet. One is against these incredibly sophisticated criminal networks, and the other, it's against the broken systems that are supposed to be protecting nature in the first place. So take a look at this. It might look like a weird piece of jerky or something, but this is the swim bladder of a fish called the totawaba. And on the black market, it can be worth more than its weight in gold. They call it aquatic cocaine, and it fuels this incredibly violent illegal trade. But the real tragedy? The hunt for this fish is accidentally killing off a totally different species, the tiny vaquita porpoise, which gets caught in the nets and is now on the very brink of extinction. And that really gets to the heart of it. This two-front war against nature. You've got highly organized, transnational crime on one side. And on the other, you have these broken, totally outdated, and just plain ineffective systems of environmental management. Both of these forces are pushing our planet's ecosystems right to the edge. You know, it's easy to think of wildlife crime as this separate, almost niche problem. But it doesn't happen in a vacuum. The research is absolutely clear on this. You have to think of it as a convergence point. The people trafficking endangered species are using the exact same smuggling routes, the same money laundering techniques, and the same violent tactics as drug traffickers. It's all connected. It's all part of the same global organized crime machine. Let's just zoom in on that totawaba trade for a second. We are not talking about small-time poaching. When these fish bladders are selling for up to $15,000 a kilo, you're talking about big business, a cartel-level business. They use couriers, unsuspecting air passengers. They have these complex routes that go through other countries like Malaysia or Japan just to throw off law enforcement. And get this, authorities discovered that just one of these groups moved almost $120 million worth of these things in only 3 years. It's staggering.
Okay, so that's the organized crime front. The other front in this war is mismanagement. And that brings us to this number, 35.4%. According to the UN, that's the slice of all global fish stocks that are being harvested at levels that are biologically unsustainable. Now, this might not be technically illegal in the same way, but believe me, it's just as destructive in the long run.
And here you can really see the two faces of this war, side by side. On the left, that's a clear act of organized crime, live parrots stuffed into tubes to be trafficked. But on the right, you see a skate. It's a victim of bycatch. The fishers weren't trying to catch it, but it got caught and killed anyway. Why? Because of poor management practices that just fail to protect all the other species that get in the way. Poor management also creates this really haunting problem called ghost fishing. See, when fishing gear like nets or crab pots gets lost or just abandoned at sea, it doesn't just biodegrade and go away. It can keep on fishing all by itself for years, trapping and killing marine life long after the fishers are gone. It creates this hidden mortality that no one's counting, but it has this devastating invisible impact. But here's the thing. It is not all bad news, not by a long shot. In the face of these huge threats, a really powerful global alliance is starting to fight back. So let's take a look at how they're taking on these criminal networks head on. Look, if you're going to fight a global problem, you need a global force. It's that simple. And that's exactly why the world's most powerful enforcement bodies, we're talking Interpol, United Nations, the World Customs Organization, they all came together to form this single consortium. It's called the ICWCW, and its whole mission is to present a powerful, united front against wildlife crime. And let me tell you, their work gets results. Just look at Operation Thunder. It's one of their biggest initiatives. In the latest phase, an absolutely incredible 133 countries all coordinated their enforcement efforts at the same time. And the outcome? More than 2,000 seizures of protected wildlife, over 500 arrests, with investigations still going. That is the kind of impact you can have with real international cooperation. And the fight goes so much deeper than just kicking down doors and making arrests. The whole strategy is to dismantle the entire criminal enterprise from the ground up. So that means training financial investigators to follow the money. It means developing cutting-edge wildlife forensics to build rock-solid court cases. It means tackling the black market that's flourishing on the internet. And crucially, rooting out the official corruption that allows these networks to operate in the first place. So yeah, you can see that law enforcement is getting a whole lot smarter, a whole lot more effective. But that brings us to a really critical question, doesn't it? Can we actually arrest our way out of this crisis? I mean, is locking up traffickers really enough if we don't fix the underlying broken systems that allow nature to be exploited in the first place? And the answer to that question,
Well, it leads us to the entire other half of the solution. We have to move beyond just reacting to the crime after it happens. We have to start building smarter, more flexible, more adaptive systems for managing our natural resources. It's really time to rewrite the rules of conservation.
For decades, the old way of doing things was what you'd call command and control. Some central government agency, hundreds of miles away, would make a bunch of rules, often with zero local input. And this top-down approach, it just didn't work. It alienated the communities on the front lines, and the overfishing continued. The new way, the better way, is something called co-management, and it's all about genuine partnership. So what is co-management exactly? Well, you can think of it as a shift away from that top-down hierarchy to a real collaborative partnership. The secret ingredient here is shared power and shared responsibility. Decisions aren't just handed down from on high anymore. They're made together with the local people who actually depend on these resources and know them best. And this whole collaborative approach works so well because it's adaptive. The goal isn't to create one perfect static plan that never ever changes. No, instead it's a continuous cycle, just like you see here. You plan something, you do it, you evaluate how it went, and then, most importantly, you learn from it. This lets conservation policies evolve and improve right alongside the ecosystems and the communities they're designed to protect.
This quote from two of the leading experts in the field, it really captures a massive shift in thinking, a huge paradigm shift. What it's telling us is that successful conservation, successful fisheries management, it's not really about counting fish. It's about understanding and managing human behavior. It's about social dynamics and economic needs. And when you boil it all down, it's about people.
And that focus on people, that is the final and honestly the most important piece of this whole puzzle. It is all about empowering the communities who are living and working on the front lines. Because at the end of the day, if our conservation policies don't work for people, they are going to fail for nature too, period. And if you want to see what happens when policies don't work for people, just look at this data from Ghana. A fishing ban was put in place. Now, it was well-intentioned, right? The goal was to help fish stocks recover, but the human cost was just devastating. The data shows that over a third of the fishing households reported going hungry, and almost as many saw their incomes just completely collapse.
And this quote, this makes those cold statistics painfully real. This is the actual voice of a fisher from a community in Bangladesh that went through a similar ban. This isn't about numbers on a chart. It's about families being forced to skip meals. It's about having to survive on just a few vegetables and salt. That is the human consequence of conservation that ignores people. And let's be really clear here, this is about so much more than just income. Small-scale fisheries are an absolute lifeline for nutrition around the world. For some of the world's most vulnerable people, they are the primary source of essential nutrients like iron, zinc, and calcium. So protecting these fisheries isn't just an environmental issue, it's a matter of global food security and public health.
So what does a successful, people-centered approach actually look like? Well, here are a few really powerful models. You have co-management committees that give fishers a real seat at the table. You have things like community-supported fisheries, where people pay up front, which shares the risk and guarantees a fair price. And we know that securing indigenous land rights is one of the single most effective ways to protect both forests and people's livelihoods. The common thread here? Every single one makes local communities true partners in the process. Ultimately, this is what we're aiming for. This is the goal. We're not just fighting against crime or fighting against bad management. We're fighting for a future where these vibrant, incredible ecosystems, like the one this macaw calls home, can flourish right alongside thriving, prosperous human communities that rely on them. The two are completely inextricably linked. And so, this is where we end up. The battle to protect nature isn't some separate struggle from the fight for human dignity and justice. They are one and the same. And the real challenge for all of us is figuring out how we design a world that is truly sustainable for our ecosystems and at the same time, truly just for its people. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.